Welcome to From the Ashes, the Dungeon Crawler Network podcast all about Ashes of Creation by Intrepid Studios. Bear witness to the rebirth of the MMORPG genre from the ashes of an industry that has left the gamers behind. A cat just ran across my face, and it just... so you guys probably just saw it. Just as I was getting into the flow, there's the cat. It works every time. Anyway, I am Aggelos, founder of the Dungeon Crawler Network, and we are coming to you live. That's right, from the Mighty Beard Tavern itself. And here's the kitty again. Goodbye, kitty. And I have my co-host with me again for this evening. First and foremost, we have my co-GM over at Hands of Fate, Storms Lord. How are you, sir?
Doing great tonight. Doing great.
Excellent. Glad to have you here. We have the one, the only Alpha Soul himself. How are you?
Always doing good, focused, and we'll be paying attention this week much better than last.
Really?
Yeah,
that was my favorite part last week.
People did start to note that they're about halfway through the show, Ag, it was just pretty much you carrying it. Because Storms hadn't played yet, so he's like, what can I ask? And Alpha was he was out of it.
Play it.
Albeit no one was really listening to my words because they were all trying to read the reflection in your glasses, so that was a thing. We also have a special guest tonight. Keladar, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, man. Really happy to join your guild and excited to be here.
Glad to have you. I know we got to talk for a little bit prior to you joining, and I felt like we just kind of clicked together. It was pretty awesome. Felt like a pretty awesome guy, so I invited him to come on the show because I forget how long it was supposed to be. Just a quick few guild questions, and we ended up talking for 2 hours.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
it was a little bit. Anyway, fun show tonight, guys. First off, before we get into that, we'll talk about the show. We've got a little bit of an update about Alpha 1 and a few little bit of discussions about where we think Alpha 1 is, as well as a bunch of listener emails. Specifically, we have one that, the title of the show, The Mad Rush, is about housing and how that's going to play into Ashes of Creation at launch, especially with open world. And as long as we have enough time, we're going to move into a few roleplay concerns that a few people have and posed us questions. So pretty awesome. And hello, chat room guys. Thank you so much for showing up. Wow, we're already at 100 viewers. That's pretty amazing already, guys. Thank you so much for coming out. Before we move on to the show, though, we definitely have to give shout-outs to our newest patrons over at patreon.com/Dungeon Crawler Network. That's Happy Hansel, T-Elf, and Spectral Spire. They're supporting us over there, bringing us the torches so we can continue to sit in this tavern, get fat, and talk about Ashes of Creation, right? That's what I'm here for. Yeah?
Amen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Prophet Winfrey over on YouTube, only because they asked me for a shout out because they mentioned about, Ashes of Fortnite and said they deserve a shout out on the show. And I said I would if I remembered. So I wrote it down. So I remembered. There you go, Prophet. I expect a thumbs up for that. We also had some amazing iTunes reviews. I have to pull up my phone here because we had 2 of them this week. And one of them was from a little while ago, but again, I'll get to that one in a second. First one is from 0111. It says, fantastic podcast with a fantastic community. Best content for Ashes from people who deeply care about the game. Much love from Zero. Thank you so much, Zero. You're awesome. We also had another one from Darth Paul 217. And this is the reason why it took a while. Because it's from Sri Lanka. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. We have listeners in Sri Lanka. So, if I pronounce that right. I actually had a missionary who came to my church who was working from there, and I never could pronounce it then either. Anyway, this came in on September 10th, and the service I use updates me on the worldwide people every month, so it takes me a little bit. But he says, laid back channel and good source to keep up with info on the game and community highlights. So thank you so much, Darth Paul 217. You're awesome. If you want to help support the show, you can leave us a 5-star review on iTunes so people know that we are a real podcast, that we say real words, and sometimes it matters. Not all the time, but hey, it's fun. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump right into our discussion topics. First up, we have there was some big news that came out. What was it? I feel like everyone in our Discord was excited about something. Like everyone except for Alpha and I were excited. Well,
Yeah, lots of old news going on.
yeah, a lot of old news. Old news. Yeah. Alpha 1 invites are going out for everyone who signed up for Alpha 1. So, yeah. That's pretty exciting.
I'm still waiting, but I'm hoping I'll get one today. Submitted a ticket, but
Hey, those
I'm
email
sure it's on its
servers.
I got one. I was pretty excited.
Yeah, one. Has anybody got it yet? Yes, we have.
Yes, yeah. No, they Alpha 1 is now actually going to be kicked underway, and they're going to do a few more stress tests before that, but they are getting everyone into the stress test. Now, before we actually, get too excited, I kind of want to sit down and talk with Alpha on this one, because both of us have been in both of the Alpha 1 stress tests that have been going on over the past 2 weeks. And I'm not going to lie, I know they went from 250 in week 1, which was just a few of us, to 1,250 the second week. And then supposedly this week they were supposed to add another 3,000 more. And I'm assuming that's going to be for the stress test that's going to be going on this weekend, because I'm sure they're going to have one. And then next week is supposed to start the entire thing. I know they've been ramping up pretty far with this, but do you feel like the Alpha is ready for that? Alpha?
My gut reaction would actually probably be no. But I don't know what they've actually done on the back end, since then. We know that they've made gradual improvements since we first started, which was heartening. But the real thing that I'm looking at is, and I remember you and I were talking about this earlier, when I first got in game for the first time, it was really smooth as butter. But I hadn't really been paying attention to how many people were actually in game, and I think it was like 40. And then they cranked it up at one point to 100 people, and then I started slowing down. I started getting lag, and the responsiveness was not there. So I'm not sure if they've actually addressed that, since I haven't actually been in a match that has that many. Because after that test went on, they put the servers back down to I think it was 35, 40 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was experiencing. I don't think the largest match that I did was, I think, on day 1, when we first started, the very first test, and they had it up to 50. And we got 1 or 2 games in before they were like, well, people are still downloading, et cetera, et cetera. So they lowered it to try to get the queues up and having people hop in. And that actually just caused a few more issues, and the server started to burn. It was pretty funny. In fact, I think we were talking with a few of our guildies, and I think the Guild Wars 2 server also caught fire at the same time. So we were joking that apparently Intrepid Studios bought the server right next to the Guild Wars 2 server, and they jumped fires. It was odd timing. And it was pretty funny at the same time. But I don't think I've ever been in a game that was above 50 people. After that, it was either 40 or, like you said, 35. And the performance was really good at 35. But as all of you know, and those of you in chat, I see you guys, by the way. Oh, and Frosty Flowers threw popcorn at you, Kellador, just so you know. So you have to eat that.
That's kind of my normal. Yeah, I'll eat it. But that's kind of my normal thing in my Twitch stream. She does that quite a bit. She throws things at me. So.
Nice. I appreciate that. At least it wasn't at me. As we all know, 35 does not an MMO make, right? It just doesn't. So I'm concerned at this point whether or not, I don't know. If I've yet to see them go up to 100, so when they have, how many Alpha 1 backers is it? 10,000?
Yeah, 10,000.
Well, I don't think it was quite 10,000. Maybe it is over 10,000 now. I think they had 8,000 and some odd backers, but then they also had Alpha 1 or Alpha 0 invites and stuff like that, and content creators who probably didn't have it, who are now also going to have access to the game in order to stream it and things of that nature once the NDA drops. So I don't know. I'm of concern. I have a lot of concern about where the state of the game is currently, because I have yet to see a game above 50 perform at an adequate level.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a valid concern, but I guess we're going to find out pretty quickly within the next, 2 weeks.
Right. Now, I know they said that the NDA is going to hang out for at least another week, which I'm assuming that's going to be the rest of the stress test, which is good because we don't want people to be standing there at the login screen while the servers are catching fire. And I know quite a few people are going to be streaming. Kelador, I know that's something you've been doing and building your channel for.
Yep. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I think I spoke to a few of our guild members and stuff like that, and I think we said it last week. I said it's a good thing that they didn't allow streaming, because for like the first day or the second day that we did it, so much of it was us sitting at the login screen waiting for queues to happen, and then the servers caught fire. I think in the first day, out of the 5 or 6 hours we were testing, 2 games happened at the start before everyone started to download the game, and then it crushed and burned. So
Yeah.
I have those concerns, and I'm a little interested at where the game's going to go. With matchmaking, I wonder if they got their matchmake servers working, and how many they can run concurrently. Do you have any estimate on that? I mean,
Yeah. So this is actually, I genuinely don't know, but it's got to be a lot, because if you figure, we've only had, a couple hundred so far, and all of a sudden 10,000 people are coming in.
Yeah.
If you don't want an insane queue, then, you're going to have a lot of concurrent servers that are kind of running this, right?
But
So
you got to figure out, too, how they have it all spread out, right? So it depends. The purpose of these tests is how they're going into it. Is the purpose of the test to find the hockey stick? Is the purpose of the test to find out where it works or where it breaks? So with a stress test, there's a lot of different angles depending on how you want to do the test. I taught this for years. So there's a reason you have that many people in, and it may be I want to break it, right?
Oh,
or
yeah.
it may be I want to see where the 50% point is. There's a whole different thing in percentiles, the whole science on how it all works. So I'm, again, very interested in how they're doing and what they're doing. I'm not worried yet. I've done this many times. I brought down many servers on purpose. So I got to know where it breaks. So it depends how they're doing it.
So that is reassuring, because they were very communicative as they were doing it, of what they were, not necessarily what their end goal was, but they were like, hey guys, we're going to do this now. Hey guys, we're going to do this now. And such like that.
That's good.
yes,
Yeah.
they definitely were. Steven and his team were very active in chat, going, hey, servers are on fire, we're rebooting them, hey, do this, do this, do this. It was very nice to see. I mean, I work with a lot of indie studios. It's not, honestly, if they didn't do that, it would have been weird. A lot of indie studios are like that. I've worked with many of them, and they're a lot of times the developers, the creative director, they're in the thick of it, right? Because that's what they're doing. So, I mean, it's reassuring they're keeping those trends, but I would have been surprised had they not at this point. All right. Any other further things before we kind of move on? I know as of right now, everyone's just, gnawing at the bit in order to actually get into the game, especially, these 2 other guys over here, Alpha Soul, who haven't been in yet, right?
Yeah.
No? All right. We're going to go ahead and move on to our discussion topics we have for tonight. And these are sent by 2 of our awesome community members. First one, Bo asked the question, and the subject of this email was the Mad Rush, right? Hello, I really enjoy your show. I have a topic that I'd like to hear about, the competition for in-node housing. It supposedly will only take a few days to reach the village stage. When that occurs, there will be a mad rush to buy one of those houses. Will casual players have a chance to buy one of these compared to the wealthy caravan pirate? Caravan pirate, I like that. Will guilds combine resources and have a tune just waiting around for a village stage to snag up all the houses? Of course, more than one-room houses will become available at each stage, or more one-room houses will be available at each stage, but will people run off in search of another encampment if they don't get the house? A side note also, will you be able to tell what kind of node it is by the NPCs that are in the camp? Priest, military. Oh, you will be able. Do you think people will decide right away to find another node? Will there be chat advertising like east of the river is a scientific node? We'll have fast travel to our sister nodes, et cetera, et cetera. I know. So it's long, but let's kind of talk about it. Let's kind of address the bottom half first before we get into it. I really expect, and I fully expect, and I see it already within alpha, you're going to see a lot of metagaming, which is people going outside of the game to convey information, right? Like that is just something that's going to happen. You're going to see people going, yeah, we're seeing these nodes here on this server. This is what we're seeing so far. Yeah, it's going to happen. Like I don't foresee that not. It's happening in every MMO. What do you guys think?
Oh, definitely is going to happen.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like websites that come out that have like somehow track the node. I mean, they might block some of that stuff, but depending on how much information they release, I've seen things where you can like different games with like PvP where you can see the different like, you know, you can see everything. So I mean, you might be able to go on a website and just be like, okay, this is like the node progression within the last hour. I mean, I don't know, but we'll see. Depends on how crazy people get about it, I guess.
I know actually there's a couple sites I know and community sites. I'm not going to give out names at this point, but that's their plan depending on API to be able to track these things and go around, and it's pretty amazing at that point. Again, that really depends on what kind of API is available, if they're going to allow us to see that API in the first place.
Exactly.
I don't know, but even if they don't, we already see the Discord server. We already see people trying to convey information. There's already people in the Battle Royale test who are getting information about how to win at that. You know, like that sort of metagaming is going to happen, and I really think, you know, depending on especially betas, as we get a feel for how nodes are. And by the way, you guys can interrupt me at any point in time. I'm just talking. Depending on how nodes are set up or how we get a feel for nodes, if people start going, wow, fast travel is really important because it really does take like 8 hours to get across, maybe scientific nodes will be a thing. But if the world's not as big as people assume, and it really doesn't matter that much, maybe it won't be such a big thing. It really depends on the size of the world, really. I mean, everyone... At least most modern MMO gamers like fast travel. I think it's lazy, but but if the world takes 10 years to get across, then maybe that's something that we need.
So that's an interesting perspective. I mean, if you think about it, I believe part of the underworld was in lieu of fast travel to go quicker between different areas. That was
I believe so
one of the
too.
very beginning pieces of that. I think that would be a great idea. And if you're talking, you now have to map out, if you don't have fast travel, you know, where are scientific nodes, where are underworld entry and exits. That would be extremely important from a PvP perspective. If you want to move a lot of people fast, how do you do it?
Well, didn't they say that the underworld was supposedly about 100 kilometers in size is what they were aiming for?
Right, but that doesn't mean the entrances and exits are the same and where they are, right?
I fully imagine if you're looking at, you know, it's km squared, right? So it's not just a straight distance. So I think if the entire world is 500, let's just throw that out there. Let's say it's 500, but the thing's 100. Yeah, there may be big cavern nodes, but when you square that out, those little side panels, they still count, but they're a much smaller number. So maybe you're only traversing 100 square kilometers versus 500 because you're going through the underrealm.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of interesting things. An interesting note about the scientific piece, though. I hadn't thought about that in a while with the fast travel.
Yeah.
I was gonna say back in EverQuest days, I don't know who played EQ, but there wasn't fast travel. So I remember sitting like waiting for a boat for 15 minutes. And it seems like a lot of people are like, oh, that takes too long. But you know what it did is you would sit there and you would actually talk to people because you had to sit there and talk to people. So like, I guess I'm probably one of the old school perspectives on it. Like, I don't really like fast travel at all. They also had a thing where basically you'd have to find someone from certain classes that could do like they could basically portal people between different places. They had spires around the game, and I made a ton of money basically traveling people as like a bus. So you know.
I remember in Final Fantasy 11 running to get to the boat, which took 30 minutes to get to you. You still rode it for 30 minutes or 15 minutes because it was 15 minutes trip, but then it was 15 minutes back because it was real world. And seeing the boat just as you get to the dock pull off, and you're like, no. Because then you knew you're not just waiting for 15 minutes on the boat. You're waiting for 30 for it to get back and then 15 to ride it. That was fun.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and get back to the topic at hand. The mad rush for houses. Let's actually talk about this in two stages. First off, I know we talked about this in our Discord channel itself. Some of the thoughts about the Head Start servers versus the non-Head Start servers. So we'll kind of break that conversation in half. The Head Start servers in general, I know they said they're going to take node housing away, or nodes aren't going to level for the time that the Head Start's going on, right? So no nodes are actually going to be there. You'll be able to level your character, be able to get progression, etc., etc., but no nodes will actually start spawning until the official launch of the game. And I know some people are like, well, really would that matter? But I still feel like there's going to be a very big rush for housing on the Head Start servers because, yeah, for 3 days, there's no node progression, but people are still getting money, and plot spaces take money to buy. You can't just run there and click, oh, I'm good to go. You have to buy the property, right? How do you think that's going to affect?
So there is one portion that I don't think Intrepid has actually cleared up just yet, and that's if you remember, they said you could buy homes anywhere, right? You can go out into the wilderness, purchase homes, and you can also purchase homes within the node sphere of influence. And if you purchase them within the sphere of influence, then that home grows as the node grows, right? And can be de-leveled as it goes.
In node housing, yes. Not freehold housing. Yeah, okay.
No, not freehold housing. Freehold housing you can only use within the node. I think it was. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was actually just for clarification point for people. The in-node houses starts at a village stage. That is also the same time where freeholds can be placed. Freeholds, remember though, that space is also limited. So it's not like you could just put it anywhere. There will be certain places that you can put freehold housing within the zone of influence of the node that has leveled up. So both freeholds and in-node housing are limited. Okay.
Gotcha.
You want to? I didn't know if you were going to.
No, I'm done. Then I misunderstood that wrong because I think I remember one of his first comments was something along the lines of you could place housing anywhere, and I literally took that to mean anywhere, like UO. You could place it out in the wilderness or not.
But it's the freehold system. It could be a house. It could be whatever you want. You place a freehold down, and you can build whatever you want. So yes, that is true. That we're going to see that like UO. But like UO, let's go back. You and I played UO. The thing about UO was you could place houses anywhere. Sorta. Remember, the land had to be 100% flat. Nothing can be obstructing it. You know, while it kind of gave the sense of free placement, it wasn't free placement. Because the developers, if they didn't want a house being built there, they put a tree there, or a forest, or they made the ground sort of rocky.
Or a little annoying rock, basically,
A little annoying rock in the center of where you want to put a house, yeah. Yeah, those kind of things, that's going to be very similar. And I expect to see, what is the term, urban sprawl, suburban sprawl, outside of big node cities. Because outside those big node cities are going to be the places within the zone of influence that you're going to be able to place freeholds, right? So that'll be growing. Keladar, what are some of your thoughts
on the housing?
Yeah, like especially within relation to Head Start housing, the servers on Head Start. Do you think?
I mean, go ahead. Go.
No, I was going to say finishing my thought was: do you think Head Start servers are going to be vastly different from normal servers?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing I was thinking as I thought about this topic was that, like, I think the guilds that are very hardcore, they're going to end up, like, they're going to try to figure out, like you were saying, someone else was saying about getting money quickly. People are going to try to, in the first 12 hours, are going to try to figure out, like, how can we acquire money together as a guild, like as fast as we possibly can. I'm definitely glad that they're limiting the node progression to try to, like, not give people a crazy advantage. But I do think there will be some form of an advantage because you'll get just a layout of the game, you know, that will give people a pretty big advantage in terms of, like, finding housing, what they want to do to their strategies, you know what I mean? Because it's definitely going to not just be like, oh, I can just buy a house here. Like, there's going to be a lot of competition for sure. So,
oh, actually, piggybacking off of that, I just thought of this. Do you think they're going to drop us in the same spot, or will we have the potential to come out of multiple spots in the world? So will it be like a bloom, all coming off of one spot, or, you know, dot everywhere?
I'm trying to remember, and I don't want to. There's supposed to be multiple divine gateways bringing us back.
Right.
And I think, if I remember correctly, the divine gateways will be based upon races. So sort of like how in other games you started at your racial city. The way I'm imagining the lore, and we'll get into this, is that excuse me, when everyone left Vera and came back, that each of these major cities still existed wherever they went, right? And when they came back, each civilization had their own divine gateway, and they used it to leave, and now they're using it to come back. So we're going to see the humans come back, possibly through one. I imagine both human sub-races or tribes or whatever. I think tribes is the better term than races because humans are humans at that point. But the two tribes will come through one. So we may be separated in that regard. So each race will start at different places.
I'm almost sure I heard it was going to be 4 portals. I don't remember where I heard that, but I'm pretty sure that was accurate information. I just can't remember where the source was. But I remember the number 4 sticks with me when I was thinking. I remember hearing it at some point or reading somewhere. I don't remember. But.
And
it's going to make a huge difference on where you decide as a guild to lay claim.
Yep.
If you're not all the same race, you're not using the same portal, what do you do? Right? So there's going to be some thinking about that ahead of time. And I think the advantage of the head start will be able to, if you're across the world, you'll be able to get to the other side if you want somebody from that race for any particular reason. Even though the whole guild is going to be one, if we want several from a different portal for whatever advantage that would give us, that would give them time to cross, however, get across.
And a few people in chat, I see Utwa, as well as Happy Hands. Utwa says there could be 4 to 6 portals, Steven said. And Happy said, last I heard, you'll be able to choose which gateway you come from. The racial aspect is for atmosphere, so you could probably be able to choose where you want to go. And from a guild perspective, that would help all of us out because I know we have we're not going to make everyone pick a specific race. The only caveat to that is, you know, I noticed I removed in our application no elves, right? Like, just, it wouldn't be a From the Ashes show if I didn't insult elves. That's how it goes. But none of you guys are elves, right?
It depends.
I'm gonna stay quiet on that one.
Oh. Well, guys, we have 3 new openings on From the Ashes for anyone who's interested. Oh, anyway. No, that would definitely be helpful. But speaking of getting back to the actual housing thing we got going on, I want to actually bring up, I know UO was an interesting case. I did not play UO when it first started. I came in at like Lord Blackthorn's Revenge or something like that. So by then it was already a pain in the bum to actually find houses. But let's actually move forward a little bit to a game that, I don't know, is in a lot of people's memory. What is it? I think it's a game that the creative director was really influenced by, Arcade.
Oh, yeah, Arcade.
Yeah, now you want to talk about a Madhouse rush. Part of the issue with that, well, there's a lot of issues with that, but botters in general were able to fly around and actually pick up spots very quickly. There was an insane rush for housing, especially early on. Going even into another game, Final Fantasy XIV, which does have limited housing, not quite in this it's instance, but it's like an instance neighborhood, but they only have so many instances to pick from. So it's the same neighborhood. You go in, oh, I want to pick 1 through 20, and you just hope there's free slots.
Right.
That game only on the least populated servers are there still houses, and most of them are the tiny ones. Housing is a very big thing. I think there's going to be an insane rush in order to get housing right off the bat. The other issue you're going to have, and I can tell you this will happen because there will be a mad rush for this. There are going to be people during alpha and beta phases who are going to find the best way of making money, and that's all they're going to be doing.
Exactly.
Right.
So that they can earn the money the fastest and get the nodes right off the bat. I mean, given the fact that, and all right, I have to say it in a way that I want to, and I'm trying to figure out the way I want to phrase this. They say they want to have 10K people on a server. I'm going to call BS on that, just from an IT perspective, and I know Storms, you're probably similar. I don't know of any game ever that has had that many concurrent people on a single server, except for maybe Eve, and theirs is a supercomputer powered by the entire island of Iceland, so they're a unique case. Most others can't. I would be insanely surprised if they could. I fully expect, and I've said this before, I fully expect there to be a PR speech, and I already did a one shoe eating thing, so Steven, I'll do another one if I'm wrong, but I just don't think that's going to be the case. I think we're going to get some sort of PR speak at some point that will flow something like this. In order to provide a more tactical combat experience and avoid Zerg storms, we have decided to lower the total number of characters on a server to X. In other words, I think it was probably too laggy, and now they had to lower it down. But, you put a flowery spin because that's how it works. I do think that will happen. There's nothing wrong with it, so don't really take that as a huge criticism because it's not really. But even with, let's just say, 2,000 people on a server, all right? There's supposed to be 100 nodes in the game at first, but not every node can go up. Only 5 nodes can be Metropolis, and then I'm assuming from there it's some, multiplicative of 5 for the next thing. 5 Metropolises, 10 cities, 20 villages, et cetera, et cetera. So the houses are still going to be limited at that point. What is that? If there's even 3 houses at a time, 60, 200 houses, give or take. 250 for 2,000 people. I think you're going to have a very big issue, and that's not talking freeholds, but even if it was 1,000 houses for 1,000 people on the server, you're going to have a very big land rush right off the bat. I mean, I don't know if there's a way to even change that because they want open node houses. They want people to fight over this. I think a lot of early sieges are going to happen because X guild, and I will say guild, swoop in because I know they're going to do, especially a lot of the economic guilds we see advertising, who that's what their major plan is. They'll sweep in, they'll buy all the houses, they'll work together, and then they may sell them for a profit. They may keep them. We don't know. But I think a lot of the early conflicts are going to be people trying to establish themselves not only as a guild within a city, but as a person with a home.
Can we damage houses?
Only in a node, only in a siege.
Yeah. I mean, my personal opinion on this is that this is awesome. I know it seems like everyone's like, oh man, they're all nervous about like how they're going to get housing. But like, it is true that like, this is the kind of stuff that I care about, that like the dissension and like the, everyone panicking and all that stuff, like that is what will cause the game to be fun, honestly. Like fighting over the stuff, like there's going to have to be conflict for the game to be any fun, especially if it's a PvP game. Now, honestly, most of the games I've played, I'm not a big PvP person. I enjoy it, but it's never been something that like, that's all I care about. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I want there to be people that are pissed off. I want there to be like people like guilds that like we're fighting to work together to take over a city. Like that's the kind of stuff that's going to make this game epic. The kind of stories and shit. You know what I mean? Like we hear it. I actually see on like PC Gamer and stuff, there's actually like articles about Eve and like things that have happened and backstabbing that's happened. Just wait with this game. Like this game could be like so much more than that if they with the node system, if they do it properly and they keep integrating more things, I can't wait to see what happens. So
absolutely. And I see in chat, yeah, I know. I see it was an abbreviation. Yeah, but it sounds like a really cool French name now when I say it as one. Dremikar in chat, I'm sorry, MK1 says, the bot force was real in ArcAge, at least it was 2 years ago when I was playing. So, is there any info on how Intrepid is planning to fight V-bots and gold diggers and RMT? The only thing I've heard so far is that they want to do a free trial server that will allow you to, and this is something I think they were just playing with, but the ability to have a free trial server that doesn't require subs so people can play it, and then you can transfer your character if you like it. But maybe that'll combat some of it because then you're not paying a sub. The sub, I think, will definitely help. The thing to take note of is most of the time gold sellers on sub games like Final Fantasy stuff aren't paying for the sub. They've hacked the game. Right? So two-factor authentication will definitely help with gold sellers because most gold sellers, they operate on pretty thin margins. I shouldn't say pretty thin margins. They pay people pennies on the dollar to farm gold, but they're not going to pay 15 US to play because that really cuts into their stuff, especially if it gets banned as well. So what they'll do is they'll do compromised attacks. So I know they talked about two-factor. That's a big thing. You need two-factor authentication right off the bat.
Oh yeah.
But think about it. I mean, just talking through Reddit, I'm not sure, but it turns out that bot farms could be used the other way around. In an open PvP world, if somebody's farming and I take them out, right, what do I get?
All the resources.
Right. So if you know how a bot farm, where I've seen them in ESO, right, with like 6 guys running the same way, doing the exact same thing, right? So you wait till they're at the end of their run, and then you pop all 6.
Yeah.
So it's something to think about, right? So that could dissuade farming by farming the bots.
I think it will help. I really do think that will be something that does help. But again, so many gold farmers aren't farming. Some do, but a lot of it is compromised accounts where they'll compromise an account, they'll send all the gold they have off to another account, and then they sell that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I got a plan now.
And I noticed as they talked about here for how to acquire plots.
Stuff down, we can track these people. I could, make some money here.
Yeah, that'd be fun, especially early on when it's actually the most prevalent is when the game first launches, when there's the most amount of hype. That's when you're going to see a lot of gold sellers all over the place. Still not sure about how acquiring plots work outside of having to be a citizen of that node. I pretty much imagine that what's going to happen is, especially within cities, let's talk about in-node houses, you become a citizen. You have to become a citizen in order to acquire it. You go up to, like BDO. In BDO, now there's this instance, but you see a house, you go up to it, you click, and there's an interface going, would you like to buy the house? Yes or no? I think that's honestly how it's going to be. Same way in ArcAge. You went up to a plot, you click the plot. I think there was a sign, if I remember correctly, and it's like, hey, do you want to buy the house? Yes or no? Yeah. Great. But you're still going to need money. You're still going to need to become a citizen, which may help to an extent to lower the mad rush, because you still have to become a citizen. We don't know what that's going to take. Is it going to require a certain reputation level? That would be cool.
Or a time frame even. Like just the amount of time could slow it down too.
Yeah.
Just a requirement of how long you have to be, I don't know, active there or something. I don't know. Who knows?
A 3-day waiting period.
3 days. I am now a citizen.
I can own a gun or a potion launcher. I can own a potion launcher and I can buy a house. This is awesome. Nice. Nice. All right. Anyway, I think that's pretty much where we're going to be. Definitely, if you are not on a Head Start server, you are probably going to be on a more equal playing ground. The Head Start servers, at least in one aspect of the Mad Rush, they'll have the money on them, the money part. So, going from there. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next email. And this one will be a lot of fun. This is from Maria, and the subject was roleplay in Ashes. I like Maria. She interacts with me a lot on YouTube. Hi again. There is probably quite a lot you want to talk about in the upcoming Alpha 1 Phase 1, so I don't expect you to make this a topic or create a mailbag episode anytime soon. 2 weeks is what I made it. Anyway. With that out of the way, I would like to hear a point of view on a topic dear to my heart. I seem to remember sharing this opinion with one of your guests. Can't remember the name. I think it was Diggs, actually. So, anyway, the topic, as the title suggests, is roleplay. In this case, specifically roleplay within Ashes of Creation. Steven regrettably has said on multiple occasions he does not want dedicated RP servers because, and I am paraphrasing, I can't remember the exact quote after all, the entire game is roleplay. You defend and siege cities, you live in the world as whatever you want to play. Now, I somewhat agree with that statement, and it's just one of the many reasons why I started following the game in the first place and by proxy your channel. Thank you for that, by the way. You never actually flat out stated it, I think, but given your ESO show and the title of the Ashes podcast and what have you, you're a role player yourself. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Do you think it's enough? I mean, as a role player, I tend to make my own campaigns and stories and then relax in town or an inn and communicate as my character would. This, of course, is why dedicated RP servers exist in the first place, because nothing ruins immersion more than seeing someone sprinting and jumping up and down the entire time. I'll also add when they wear bright pink armor. But anyway, shouting about game mechanics and using things like LOL, WTF, LFG, WTB, etc. All games, eventually, if you put you in a rut of sorts, no matter how interesting. The only reason I am still subscribed to World of Warcraft is RP. There is always the argument the RP community will designate an unofficial RP server. Whilst this is true, sometime down the line this can change. Google searches for unofficial RP servers for other games are often outdated and no longer hold true. So I don't think that's a proper solution. So yeah, what are your thoughts? Also, what things would you like to see for roleplay? Blah, blah, blah. I'll go down through all of this because there's some pretty cool stuff through there. And I don't want to read all those because we'll be talking about some of them. Anyway, she mentions a few things. Do you or any of your other guests have specific wishes regarding RP or things they wish to see, or perhaps against the entire thing, such as against roleplay? Anyway, I don't necessarily think you will address this mail, but one can always hope. P.S. Elves. Oh, I see there's a misspelling here. It's elves are worse than all other races. I corrected it for you. Don't feel embarrassed. I understand. It happens. Elves are worse than all other races. There you go. Free correction. All right, guys. RP within Ashes of Creation. I actually do kind of stay by the side. First off, let me go back and say from my perspective, and I kind of want to hear from everyone else as well, I'm a gamer first and foremost. But as I get older, I actually do play RPGs for the reason of role-playing. I'm not a role player who will sit in a tavern, however. I can't do it. I can't. I still play the game, but I do play the game as if I am living in the world. I think I use the term immersion play is how I do it. I'm not really... I guess it is role play, but I'm just not willing to sit in a tavern all day and you know, make up storylines. I'm like, well, they've done that. I'll go make up my own storylines by playing the game and going, yeah. You know, even with our Tales of Tamriel show, the premise of that show is for us to, in a fun sit-down way, discuss the adventures that we've had from the perspective of our characters. So yeah, it is kind of an RP in a way. Just I will not sit in a tavern. What about Alpha? What about you? What are you kind of line yourself up as?
I line myself up as a very, very mild role player. If the extent of my role playing, it just extends to, trying to play as my character within the world.
Sure.
Yeah, you will never catch me within a tavern. You will never even really catch me trying to change the way that I speak or speak in the racial tones of whatever kind of character that I'm playing. But I still do try and act like my character would in particular. So I've played murderers, or people who are aggressive. And I've also played pacifists, with my healers and things like that who don't do any damage. But that's just how it is. That's the extent of it.
Yeah. Storms, what about you?
Very similar to yourself. I like to be able to be in the world I'm in. If I'm playing my assassin, I'm playing her like that.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm playing my Sork, I'm playing like I believe the Breton Sork would be. Right. That's how I play. And I've done that forever. I've been D&D back, 30, 35 years ago. That's what I did. Same to do it here.
That's older than me, by the way.
There you go. That's all right. The interesting part about all this whole lot of very interesting, very different ideas. One of the pieces of Skyrim that I enjoyed the most, and when I found Skyrim, I just hadn't played a long time of any video game and just enjoyed all of it. But being able to create a weapon and name the weapon was tremendous. Right, so I love that bit because I spent time working on it and I spent time getting whatever I needed, and then to be able to name it, that was fantastic. Here you can't do that like an ESO, but your name is tagged on it, created by somebody. So to me, if we could add that piece of you can name what you create, you can name your house, you can name whatever, that another step that'd be interesting.
Keldor, how about you?
I'm probably a little bit farther on the role play spectrum than you guys. I definitely think about what my character would do, what they would say. I don't do the whole racial talking thing. That's just too much. But I will tend to find the people that will play a story with me, have a friend or whatever. I'll definitely play out stories if I can find people that'll engage with it. Most people just don't give a shit, to be honest. But if they do, then I definitely will. So
yeah.
I'm definitely. I might talk about this in a video I do at some point, but it all depends on the systems they put in the game that encourage it to happen. For instance, I was thinking you guys were saying you wouldn't go in a tavern, but I mean why would you if there's nothing to really do there? So if they had I always wish that there would be a way for the voice over IP to be people could actually you would talk in a mic and it would shoot out a certain distance around you and people could actually hear. That's my dream someday. Now, I don't know. It
does exist already. Right. ESO does that actually on consoles, that if you say it and you're farther away, it actually sounds farther. It's pretty neat.
That's so if you could be in a tavern and someone was going to try to do a performance and could actually play a guitar and actually perform, it might be kind of cool to go see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it all depends on it really just kind of, I don't want to go too deep into it, but those are some of the things that I wish that it was available, because that's anything that brings community together and stops metagaming and completionism and all that kind of stuff, I think is good for the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
well, tavern games.
Tavern games, those do exist.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
No, I understand, and I will say the one thing that Maria writes down, she's detailed, because I can't speak today, character backgrounds complete with some personality sliders. I will say that part of the one thing they did confirm is the paper doll will have the ability for you to write in it. Now, I forget what other game had that. Final Fantasy 14, I think, had something like that. I feel like for the majority of people who aren't role players, you know what you're going to see in there? You're going to see what happened in Final Fantasy of this is my item score, these are my clears, etc. When you looked at things like that, people kind of listed their achievements so you could see it at a glance going, oh wow, this guy's got an X item score level, and that's, these are their different jobs they have unlocked so they could do stuff like that. I'm sure you'll also see people who are crafters who will put in their crafting specialities in there and what they can create, especially if they can make something special. But it is nice that it is provided that if you want to write a character background, you can indeed do that. Personality sliders are interesting, and I know that ESO did this with personalities that came in later. Now, they add those as a cash shop item at one point, but having personalities, I do like personalities within the game. That was something within ESO that I thought really did add character to your characters, right? Pun intended.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, you would have, and it would change your emotes as well. Like if you were I forget, the brash assassin or something like that. It was they modeled it after the one female dark elf, Naru. So you kind of had your hand on your hip and you kind of, what's up? It looked good on an elf. It did not look good on my male Nord. I kind of look like a drag queen rather than like a sultry assassin. If we had to roll that back, I had to go with something else. So I went with the classic Nord of drunk because that just worked. That aside, we'll step that back. I do think personalities are something that are kind of neat, and I would like to see those. Emotes are often overlooked in a very big way. One game in particular that I really enjoyed the emote system. Let's put it this way. The developers, I think, actually put it in to the detriment of all other systems in the game. Final Fantasy XIV, they added emotes for everything. You said about sitting in specific ways. I remember reading patch notes where they taught there was literally a paragraph on, you can now sit like this.
Yeah.
Cup your hands, put your like a teenage schoolgirl in her bed reading a book.
Yeah.
Some people loved it. Like people went nuts for that stuff. I went there and went, "Where's my next raid?" Like that was just something they didn't do. So you spent your entire development time on an emote. All right, great.
Well, that's what makes it MMO, right?
Oh, it
Because some
does.
people enjoy that stuff, right? One of the things I like about MMOs is if I get bored with one thing, there's always something other thing to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. Oh, I totally agree, and I am not knocking roleplay at all because I know she has on here enforced naming policy. I almost think that's a massive plus. I mean, my name is a real name. It's actually taken from it's a Greek from the Latin Bible, so I'm a religious guy. That's how I go. And I've been using it for years, like 15 plus years at this point. And I go into it, and I always try to fit it with the culture that it fits with. It kind of does overall okay. Like, I think even when I played ESO, I played it Nord, but I said because it looked more like a Cyrodiilic name because it was almost Latin. I was like, a lot of Nords took Cyrodiilic names when they joined the Imperial Legions, so it wasn't too crazy for me at that point. But it does kind of break my immersion a little bit when I see someone running around with a non-RP name. It really does. I wish there was a way that they could enforce it, or at least lightly enforce it to an extent. But, you can only see so many XX, Sephiroth, XX before you're like, dear heaven above.
Yeah. I will say, out of the first part of her question, I actually still, even though I'm not an avid RPer, I do more side with her point, and I do think that they should probably release at least one RP specific server.
Yeah.
And I think that would just make it easier on them, because I get where she's coming from, with this whole environment, and world, and having to navigate, people who aren't into RPing. And to be perfectly honest, that all it takes is a couple or one at that to just completely wreck like their whole gaming experience if they're not on an RP server.
Oh no, it happened a ton in ESO. ESO has such a totally deep and rich lore because it's from the Elder Scrolls. You would actually, before housing, people would have to do it out in the open world. So what they would do is they would go to these far off places, but you would often see these people actually interacting in chat in a roleplay form. And I seen some of the rudest people in the world just harassing these poor people. I'm like, they're not bothering you. You don't, like, they were sitting sitting in the middle of them, throwing spears, doing all sorts, just making a ruckus in between just to ruin what they were doing. It does happen. The internet and being able to hide behind, anonymity does happen, and it really sucks. And Isha, if I see you with fluffy bunny kisses, I will kick you from the guild. Just totally. That's what's going to happen. Kelador, you've been kind of quiet. I want to get your thoughts on some more RP related goodness.
Just trying to think of something to talk about exactly. I was just kind of.
Do you want me to circle back
saying.
around? Okay, I'll circle back.
Yeah, just circle around.
I'll circle back around. All right. This is something that, like, I'm going to read through some of the stuff that they had on here, and we'll talk about it. A dedicated GM to take control of significant NPCs and roleplay as them. Can I say that the monster coin system is an amazing way?
Yes. Yeah.
To somewhat
That's
RP
gonna be awesome.
and even get non-RPers into the event.
Oh, I'm so excited for the coins.
Oh, that
Yeah.
is going to be fantastic.
I'm excited about that. I mean, one of the issues that I see with so many role players is it stems from creative writing, right? But they can't get out of their head the story that they've written, right? So it always has to have they've pretty much figured out the entire story from start to finish. And I know part of it's supposed to be to interact with the way others are reacting to you, but so many people can't do that. It's like, oh, these people are ruining my stuff. But in the monster, especially if they can't communicate, yeah, you may want to have a story where you're a hero and you save the city, but maybe you don't. How do you roll with that? And I think from an RP perspective, even getting non-RPers into it with the monster coin system and stuff like that are a way that you can live out your roleplay fantasies of protecting that city, but be prepared that maybe you're going to have to change the ending of your story.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Yeah. That is a thing. Instruments that she has on here, the ability to create your own tunes. I actually love this within Lotro specifically has the ability to play instruments, and apparently it's so in depth that you actually have to have musical talent in order to do so. I may be wrong. I never even got that far, but they do a concert called Weatherstock every year, which cracks me up because I like puns. But Weatherstock, which is on Weathertop, where they actually play music in game using the instruments, and I watched some of the live streams. It's pretty amazing, to be honest. I love instruments. In Guild Wars 2, they also had instruments. I've seen people play the winter chime bells and actually make music with them. They only had like 10 notes, but they were able to do some pretty amazing things with that. Anything that gives players agency, I think, is pretty awesome. The one thing that I never really... Only knowing your base language at first, plus a universal one. I know World of Warcraft did this way back when, but they got rid of it by Wrath, and it didn't really seem to matter in BC. Like, I don't know if in Vanilla there was something where you could learn the other faction's speech. Does anyone remember? Does anyone play at that point? I didn't, so I don't even know. But it seemed kind of worthless. Like, when you leveled up, you would have, like, whatever the common speech was, but then you'd have all your faction. It kind of led you to believe you could learn the other faction's language, but it never led anywhere. I don't know. Yeah. So emotes were one. What was the other one that I really, really liked? I can't remember. Anyone else have any thoughts on what they'd like to see from the side of roleplay?
No.
No, I'm good.
Kel?
Yeah. I mean, I just hope like I said before, I just hope there's like things in the game that kind of, like, I hope the lore of the game is kind of, this is a little bit separate from roleplay, but that, like, as you play the game just naturally from talking to NPCs or whatever, that the lore of the game kind of comes to life. I hope they do a really good job with, like, bringing that into the game, because some of that, you know, sometimes just like some people don't care about it. You know, they'll see a random journal on the ground in a game and they won't read it. I'm one of those people that once in a while I'll read through something, you know, and learn something. So I hope that stuff's in the game, that they do spend some time kind of, you know, not just talking about it outside the game, but putting it into the actual game itself. So I hope that that's something they spend time on.
Right.
So
this is actually something I wanted to bring up because I think this is a misstep as well before we wrap up this conversation. Dedicated GM events where they take control of significant NPCs and role play as them. Steven has already said he doesn't want to see this, and I think that's a misstep. Because I think that could be really cool. It happened a lot in Ultima Online. There was another game, and I actually just watched this today. Alpha Soul and I have been watching a YouTuber called Nerd Slayer and Death of the Game series. He did one on The Matrix Online. All right,
Really great series.
It is. It's really good. And this is something I didn't even know about The Matrix Online. It was a very heavy story MMO back in the day. And despite all of its flaws, one of the things... They actually had two different development teams. One was their actual live team where they could actually control, and this was really cool. They would take control of some of the lead characters like Morpheus and Neo and stuff like that and actually role play them out and give players hints and clues about the lore of the world. That was really cool. I didn't even know they did that, but that was something. They actually had a dedicated support team that actually did that. That was awesome.
That would be cool. That would be neat.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be sweet.
And I know, as Steven said, and I understand where this came from because there was a news story just today, I think it was, that I saw that a member of Jagex, if you don't know who they are, they create RuneScape. They actually just fired one of their devs who they caught using his power, his moderator skills to benefit his friends and whatnot, like providing them with items, getting items in. It's actually a whole legal thing too. Apparently they have the police involved. It's pretty big. So I understand the idea of if you can keep the GMs out of it, it prevents the GMs, if they do have a bias towards a person or a specific group of players, to create events that benefit them. But at the same time, it sucks because it's a really cool thing, especially if they are moving these events forward. I really don't think the idea of, oh, we don't want people to miss events is a valid excuse, because it's really not. Let's talk about it, because that's going to happen anyway. You could be asleep, a node advances, an event happens. I know we have a couple EU people in our guild and Oceanic players, and one of the major concerns they had was, I'm worried based on my time zone that I'm going to miss out on events. I said, well, other than a few scheduled events like castle sieges, like a node can, like if people are up leveling at 3 a.m. and they level a node from 4 to 5, and an event happens, guess what? My old butt's in bed. I'm missing that event. It's going to happen. Or it could be a node across the world. You know, these things will happen regardless, and I just don't think that's a very good excuse not to do GM events at least once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I agree.
All right. Any other closing thoughts before we wrap up tonight? No?
These are really two good emails. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely, and I really do appreciate both Maria and Bo for sending us those emails. We wanted to get to those and provide you guys with some entertainment. And thank you so much, chat room. You guys have been awesome tonight. I see there's a lot of talk going on in our chat right now. We're still over 118 people at the ending of the show. That's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome indeed. All right, guys. Let's go around the table and let people know where they can find us. We're going to start with our guest, Kelador. Tell people where they can find you.
All right. Well, I've been streaming on Twitch for about 2 years. You can find me at twitch.tv/Keladar. I've also been starting my YouTube content. I couldn't tell you the link to that, but if you go on YouTube and search for Keladar, you can find it. It's some crazy long link. And then also on Twitter, the same thing, Twitter/Keladar. You can find me there. So
awesome. Alpha Soul.
Yeah, you can find me within the Dungeon Crawler Network on the Discord, specifically in the Hands of Fate, channels. And you can also find me on YouTube as well, YouTube/DRACDOC. I do mostly fragrance reviews, but I've started to mix in a little bit of Ash's videos.
There you go. And Storms.
Well, you can find me at the Dungeon Crawler Network Discord. You can find me working in the backgrounds of the Dungeon Crawler Network website as we make changes. But you can also find me at Digital Piper Studios on Twitter as well as on the web, and working on our Halloween edition of one of our games.
That's awesome. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Aggelos, AGGELS_DCN, and of course on Discord itself as Aggelos. I don't remember the numbers, but I'm in the official Elder Scrolls, or not Elder Scrolls, Ashes of Creation Discord, as well as the DCN Community Discord, which you can find links to in the description of this show. And of course, if you're interested in joining us in Ashes of Creation, check out our guild, Hands of Fate, the Dungeon Crawler Network chapter for Ashes of Creation, a gaming community forged by the listeners of our gaming shows. Our guild is a PvX guild that focuses on progression rating, small-scale PvE, crafting, gathering, and node-based PvP, aka the open world, and of course, the most important thing, community growth. We are based out of the North American data center, but we do have players from all over the world. So, hey, if you are an EU or Oceanic resident, hey, you enjoyed playing with us in the past, or maybe for the first time, or you want to escapemy.com, that seems to be a common trend, we encourage you to check out our site, handsoffateaoc.com. You can also follow everything we do over at dungeoncrawlernetwork.com. There you can find links to all of our social media, including Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Be sure to check out our Patreon program at patreon.com/dungeoncrawlernetwork if you want to help support the show, as well as consider leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes so people know that we are a real podcast, that we say real words, and sometimes it matters. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of From the Ashes, and we'll see you